Hello, I'm François Bouteille from EAC in France, and we shall carry on presenting the kind of training we can offer and help you to develop in your country concerning compressed air in industry usually. We shall do the same with ice water and with steam and some other energetic fluids. So at this point, which is not the presentation number 9, which you will find in Air Profil channel in YouTube. I think that you have understood the way we can organize a training for adults who are already very skilled people sometimes, and yet we can help sometimes to think about the way they operate their compressed air installation, and about some aspects of conception also, and audit, essentially. So the installation we have built had three usages. It's not very important here at that point what it was, but okay, we had said bag filters were one usage. The second usage was pneumatic engines or cylinders. It's important because they don't have exactly the same requirements for pressure and for hygrometry pressure dew point of compressed air. And we have discussed the difference between these two types of usages. The last one was regulation valves, which require a very good quality of air, dried usually by adsorption, and don't require usually much pressure. So in order to cover this need of compressed air, we can imagine several installations. One of them could be something like that. And I use here our method, which is to write down things as I speak, in order to be understood better. It's especially useful if I'm not British, so I don't speak English very well, and maybe you're not British either, you're not American, maybe your mother language, mother tongue is something very different, so writing makes it probably easier to understand. So we have to find some types of compressor. It can be lubricated here, screw compressor, the most banal but common type of compressor, which you can buy in China or in Turkey. They make excellent compressors, which are a bit cheaper. In India also, they are now. There is a big offer for this kind of compressor. Loop screw. We were content with maybe one big frigorific dryer, and we decided maybe that we shall use a spatial net. The pipework here, we can have a pipework with a loop, which is something more delicate, more intelligent to reduce pressure drops. On one end here, we go directly to bag filters. We know that there is a risk sometimes that some ice may form in the pipe, because the bag filters usually is outside. But we say it's okay, we take the risk, because it happens only once upon a time, not very often. This is if you happen to be in the south of France, for example. Well, in the north of France or in Finland, you will probably have here, in Canada, you will have an adsorption dryer. Cylinders might be okay directly. In here, we shall put some adsorption dryer, which are represented this way. It's a kind of dryer which uses a different technology as frigorific dryer in order to achieve a much lower pressure dew point, around -20 Celsius or to -70 degrees Celsius, which is a very low pressure dew point. So we believe that here we can do that. Probably we have also one filter or two to remove oil, you know, and here a filter to remove the dust coming from the adsorbent itself, you know. So here we have an installation that seems interesting. You have understood how we can use such a model to think about the three criteria that we had taken. First was pressure. Pressure, you can measure it here. Pressure, and why not pressure here? You know, this is something you can do. You can also show how the flow of air will be distributed among all these usages. This can be made by means of numeric simulations, or can be also computed with a small hand calculator, you know. And I don't need a high computer to make this easy calculation when there is only one loop or one or two loops. And this is the kind of thing we can teach. And you can also measure here the flow which is used by the dryer. Regeneration is rather expensive, you know. You use at least 15% of the air which you have to measure in the inlet of a dryer, of an adsorption dryer. So this measurement is something you can check. You can use a instant measurement, you know. You don't have to put a counter here, but just to check that you have no leaks, you know. This is important because when the valve here remains open, then you have a pressure drop in the whole plant, you know. You may have here a very big flow. If it's a 2 inches valve, you may have 1,000 cubic meter per hour lost, and very often cement plants were stopped because there was a valve which stayed open. Instead of closing, it would remain open, and so this is a very common cause of pressure drops for plants. Another one is a leak that would take place inside the bag filters. So probably you will put a venturi tube in order to measure this thing. You see, a venturi tube is something which I can show you. This one is a venturi tube. I don't know if you will see much, you know. We have that manufactured here in France. You have a convergent and then a divergent, and you measure the pressure at the input, at the center where the velocity is higher, and then maybe you can have a second measurement here if your air can change direction, you know. This is something that you can install here in order to be able to check the flow at any time. So maybe once a month, or if you have problems keeping the pressure, it's something that this is a service that we offer. We can, if we work with a plant, we offer 10 or 20 or 50 of those. This is the smallest one. It's only ½ inch, but we can have venturi tube up to to 4 inches, I think. It's a bit bigger after, you know. We are limited normally for the very big pipes. We can put several of those in a parallel, you know. It's possible to use them in parallel if you don't have room enough. So the pressure drops in this installation may justify that you measure pressure here, for example. Maybe not at each point, but usually you have manometers already on the compressors, but they are very inaccurate usually. It's plus or minus 100 millibar, and it's not a very good measurement. I would measure also the differential pressure, so I would measure this way, you know, pressure, to know if the frigorific dryer is not becoming a block of ice, you know. In this case, there is no more air getting out of it, because it will be blocked in the cold part of the frigorific dryer, as we may explain. We saw that pressure can be explained this way. Concerning energy, energy is something which is very, very important for people. Well, we can measure kilowatt on everything, and we explained at the beginning how a kilowatt might be transformed in what we call a load curve. So energy audit is something we can do, and we can naturally measure the flow, usually by means of ultrasonic flowmeters. Well, I would put it here, not just before the change of direction. You know, you need a place which is right to make a good flow measurement. And finally, for quality, you have to use some pressure dew point measurements. You can measure here dew point, pressure or atmospheric dew point, and maybe you can measure it here if it is important for your process. So these are the things you can measure. What would a training be? Normally, when we train people, we have to see if they are rather interested by operation, you know. You remember our first diagram, operation. Outsourcing, these were two possibilities. Of course, we shall not organize the lesson the same way. They may be interested by conception, and finally also by audit activity. These were the 4 types of trainings that we can offer. If we work for people who want to learn how to improve their operations, well, the process is very usually to analyze the schema, the diagram which corresponds to the real installation. You know, it's rather something that we do in each plant concerning the usages of the plant, some knowledge that we can get quickly of the pipe work and the dryers. Then, if we see that they have bad dew point measurements, we shall look why. You know, very often it's because the air which is used to cool down the compressor, you know, to cool the compressor, the coolers, they expel warm air which can go back in part inside the compressor. This means that the inlet temperature is too high. You know, very often this is the cause. You may have other causes of bad quality. We look how to reduce energy practically. Each time I see 2 ways of having this training done. We speak more precisely on such or such one component and how it works, etc. You know, and then we shall also, well, this can be done by commenting by means of photographs. You comment photographs or the plans given by the manufacturers. The other way is to comment measurement results of pressure. You see how when the compressor is loaded, the pressure goes up and all that. See, this is the way we may be happy to work all over the world with you. So if you are interested, do contact me, François Bouteille at airprofil.com, or you find our coordinates in the next lesson. And thank you.